So you finally found out, didn't you? Yeah, I see that look on your face. That mixture of confusion and something else. Something darker. Something that's been waiting to be named for years. They gave you a label, a classification, a file with your name stamped across it in red ink that probably shouldn't exist outside of classified government databases. Category 5, psychological threat. The highest designation they have. The one reserved for minds they can't predict, can't contain, can't neutralize through normal means. And you're sitting there wondering, wait, there's a whole ass system for this? There's a scale? There are categories? Oh, you beautiful anomaly. You gorgeous glitch in their programming. Yes, there are categories. And you just maxed out the meter. You broke the test. You didn't just score high. You became the reason they'll have to redesign the entire assessment framework, because nothing they built was designed to measure what you've become. Let me explain something they won't tell you. Something they buried in documents marked classified and do not distribute. Because the moment regular people understood this system existed, the whole charade would collapse like wet cardboard in a hurricane. They've been categorizing people for decades, sorting humanity into neat little boxes based on predictability, malleability, threat level, and psychological leverage points. Category 1, harmless, predictable, easily manipulated through basic social programming. Category 2, slightly more aware, might question authority occasionally, but ultimately falls in line when pressure is applied. Category 3, intelligent enough to see patterns, dangerous if organized, requires monitoring but manageable through standard containment protocols. Category 4, now we're getting interesting. These are the ones who've broken free from most social conditioning, operate outside normal frameworks, require active surveillance and occasional intervention to prevent disruption of the system. But Category 5? Oh, Category 5 is where you live now. And let me tell you what that means. What that truly, terrifyingly, beautifully means for your existence moving forward. Category 5 isn't just about being smart, or being rebellious, or being difficult to control. No. It's about something far more fundamental, far more threatening to the established order of things. Category 5 means you've developed immunity to every single psychological manipulation technique in their handbook. You don't respond to fear the way you're supposed to. You don't react to shame like they designed. You don't chase validation like the system requires. You don't perform for approval like the algorithm demands. Category 5 means you've seen through the matrix, decoded the game, understood the rules so thoroughly that you've stopped playing entirely. And that right there is the most dangerous thing a human being can do in a world built on mass compliance. They can handle rebels. Rebels are predictable. Rebels fight the system, which means they still believe in it enough to fight it. But you don't fight anymore. You simply exist outside their framework. And that existence alone is a virus spreading through their carefully constructed reality. Here's what probably happened. They noticed something about you a while back. Maybe years ago. Maybe recently. Depends on how long you've been evolving outside their sightlines. Someone flagged your file. A pattern emerged. Maybe it was the way you walked away from situations that would have trapped anyone else. Maybe it was how you stopped reacting to provocations designed to trigger specific responses. Maybe it was the silence. Oh, that silence. That terrifying, capable silence that replaced all your previous noise. They ran standard tests first, tried basic manipulation protocols, offered you the usual carrots, threatened you with the usual sticks, waited for you to fall into predictable patterns. But you didn't. You just kept moving forward on a trajectory they couldn't map, making decisions their behavioral models couldn't predict, responding to situations in ways that broke their psychological frameworks. So they escalated, moved you up the categories one by one, each time thinking, okay, this level of intervention will work, each time being proven catastrophically wrong. And now you're here, sitting at Category 5, the designation they don't like to talk about, the classification that makes the handlers nervous, the threat level that requires special protocols and eyes-only briefings. You want to know what's in your file. You want to know what they wrote about you after months or years of observation. I'll tell you, because someone leaked this, someone on the inside who got tired of lying, tired of watching them fear people who were just trying to exist authentically. Your file says things like, subject demonstrates complete immunity to social pressure. Target shows no response to standard fear conditioning. Individual has developed autonomous value system, independent of cultural programming. Psychological leverage points, non-existent or ineffective. Containment through conventional means. Not viable. They documented every time you should have broken but didn't. Every moment you should have conformed but refused. Every instance where their predictions about your behavior were proven laughably, dangerously wrong. But let's get specific about what makes you a Category 5. Because this isn't some vague, mystical nonsense. This is concrete, measurable, documented deviation from baseline human behavior patterns they've spent billions studying. First marker, emotional autonomy. You stopped needing external validation to feel whole. You stopped checking phones for approval hits. You stopped measuring your worth through other people's eyes. You stopped performing for audiences that never deserved the show. They noticed when your dopamine system rewired itself, when you found satisfaction in things they can't commodify, can't package, can't sell back to you with a subscription fee attached. Emotional autonomy is terrifying to a system built on keeping people desperate for acceptance, desperate for likes, desperate for inclusion in tribes they control. When you became complete without them, you became impossible to leverage. Second marker, pattern recognition beyond acceptable parameters. You see too much. You connect too many dots. You understand systems at levels that make institutional authorities uncomfortable. You're not supposed to see how the game works while you're still playing it. You're not supposed to decode the manipulation while it's actively being deployed against you. You're not supposed to recognize the strings while you're dancing. But you did all of that and more. You developed the ability to read rooms, read people, read situations with accuracy that borders on precognitive. And that's not supernatural. That's just what happens when someone pays attention without the filter of comfortable lies. You see the handler before they speak, you spot the trap before it's fully set, you sense the shift in energy before others even know something changed. This makes you unpredictable because you're playing chess while they think everyone's playing checkers. And worse, you're playing chess against people who don't know you can see the whole board. Third marker, pain transmutation. This is the big one. This is what really pushed you into Category 5 territory. Normal people break under pressure. Category 1 through 3 fold completely. Category 4 might survive, but they're damaged, they're wounded, They carry trauma like open wounds. But you did something they didn't account for in their models. You turned every wound into wisdom, every betrayal into boundary-setting capacity, every moment of isolation into self-sufficiency, every loss into liberation. You didn't just survive trauma. You weaponized it. You used it as fuel. You transformed suffering into strength in ways their psychological frameworks couldn't predict or contain. They watched you go through things that should have destroyed you, things they maybe even orchestrated to push you back into controllable behavior patterns. And instead of breaking, you evolved. Instead of becoming bitter, you became precise. Instead of seeking revenge, you simply rose higher and left them all behind, suffocating in the altitude. Fourth marker, social detachment without isolation pathology. You pulled away from society, but you're not lonely. You reduced your social circle, but you're not desperate. You stopped engaging with mass culture, but you're not disconnected from reality. This breaks their models, because isolation is supposed to hurt. It's supposed to make you crawl back, seeking connection on any terms. It's supposed to be punishment that corrects behavior. But for you, distance became peace. Silence became clarity. Solitude became power. You're not antisocial. You're selectively social. You're not isolated. You're protected. You're not withdrawn. You're focused. And they can't weaponize loneliness against someone who's discovered that most company is just expensive noise. You figured out that being alone with the right person, yourself, is infinitely better than being surrounded by people who drain your energy while contributing nothing of value. Fifth marker, and this is what sealed your Category 5 status. Reality distortion field. The way you move through the world actually changes the world around you. Rooms shift when you enter. Conversations pause. Energy recalibrates. People feel something they can't name. This isn't mystical. It's physics. You're operating on a different frequency now. You've raised your baseline vibration through years of internal work they can't see and wouldn't understand if they could. You don't chase anything anymore. Things come to you. Not because you're lucky, but because you've become magnetic in ways that bypass normal social hierarchies. People sense authority without you claiming it, feel power without you displaying it, recognize depth without you explaining it. You've become one of those rare humans who exists as a category unto themselves. And categories of one can't be controlled through systems designed for masses. Now, let's talk about who's watching. Because yes, they're watching. They've been watching. They'll continue watching. And honestly, let them. The watchers come in different flavors, different levels, different agendas. But they all share one thing in common. They're terrified of what you represent because you're proof that their systems aren't absolute. First-tier watchers are the basic ones. The regular people in your life who were recruited without knowing they were recruited. Friends who ask suspicious questions. Family members who suddenly want to know your plans in unusual detail. Colleagues who seem overly interested in your decision-making processes. These people aren't evil. They're not conscious agents. They're just programmed to report anomalies, to flag deviations, to sound alarms when someone in their circle starts operating outside normal parameters. They don't even know they're doing it most of the time. It's just social conditioning. Just the immune system of mass consciousness trying to contain a foreign element. Second-tier watchers are more aware. These are the ones who actually work for institutions, corporate HR departments, tracking behavior patterns, social media analysts flagging accounts that spread ideas counter to advertiser-friendly narratives, local authority figures who keep tabs on people who don't quite fit the neighborhood vibe. These watchers have access to more sophisticated tools, more data points, more ways to observe without being observed themselves. They compile reports. They track changes over time. They look for correlations between your behavior and larger patterns of social disruption. You became visible to this tier when you stopped engaging with systems they used to measure normalcy. When you deleted apps they used to track compliance. When you stopped showing up in databases they used to predict consumer behavior. Your absence from their systems created a void. And voids are interesting to people whose job is filling in profiles on everyone. Third-tier watchers are specialists, psychologists, sociologists, behavioral analysts who study outliers professionally. These are the ones who actually understand what they're looking at. When they see a Category 5, these are the ones who recognize the threat, not because you're violent or criminal or dangerous in conventional ways, but because you're free in ways that shouldn't be possible within the current social architecture. They watch you with fascination, sometimes with envy, sometimes with fear, always with respect, because they know what it takes to break conditioning. They've spent careers studying. They're the ones writing papers with your data anonymized, presenting at conferences about emerging patterns of psychological autonomy, warning institutions that the control mechanisms they rely on are becoming less effective against a growing population of people who've figured out the game. You're not alone in Category 5. There are more every year, and that's what really scares them. Fourth-tier watchers. And now we're getting into territory that sounds insane but isn't. Are the ones with actual authority, actual resources, actual capacity to intervene in your life if they decide you're too much of a threat to ignore. I'm talking about elements within security apparatus, intelligence-adjacent organizations, entities that operate in gray zones between legal and illegal, visible and invisible. Before you roll your eyes, understand this isn't paranoid fantasy. This is documented reality. These organizations exist. They have mandates to identify and track individuals who might pose threats to social stability. And threat is defined very broadly. You don't have to be planning anything illegal. You just have to be influential in ways they can't predict or control. If you've got a voice, if you've got reach, if you've got the capacity to make other people think differently, you're on someone's radar, and Category 5 means you're on a radar that matters. These fourth-tier watchers aren't monitoring you because they think you're going to commit crimes. They're watching because you're mimetically dangerous. Your ideas, your example, your very existence is contagious. People see you operating outside the matrix, and they start wondering if they can too. People see you surviving without validation from systems they're enslaved to, and they start questioning their own chains. You're not trying to start a revolution, but your liberation is revolutionary simply by existing. And that makes you more dangerous than actual revolutionaries because you can't be easily categorized, infiltrated, or neutralized. Revolutionaries follow patterns. They organize. They have demands. They have leaders who can be compromised. But you're just living your truth. And truth doesn't have a command structure. They can decapitate. Doesn't have an organization they can infiltrate. Doesn't have demands they can pretend to negotiate about while running counterintelligence operations. So what do they do with Category 5 designations? What are the protocols they deploy when standard containment has failed and someone's broken free of every psychological leash they've got? First protocol: isolation through reputation management. They'll try to make you look crazy, unstable, unreliable, dangerous to be around. This happens subtly. Whisper campaigns among mutual connections, strategic rumors that paint you as mentally unstable, carefully crafted narratives that make people question your judgment. They don't need to prove anything. They just need to plant seeds of doubt, make people think twice before associating with you, create enough social friction that you're naturally pushed to the margins where your influence is minimized. This works on most Category 4 individuals because most people still care what others think. But on Category 5, it just accelerates your evolution because you've already detached from needing social approval. So isolation doesn't hurt, it clarifies. Second protocol: economic pressure. They'll try to make survival difficult, make money tight, make opportunities scarce. This doesn't necessarily mean overt conspiracy. It means being mysteriously passed over for positions you're qualified for, having business ventures face unexpected obstacles, finding that doors which should open somehow stay closed. Economic precarity is a powerful control mechanism because it keeps people focused on basic survival instead of higher order thinking, keeps them compliant because they can't risk losing what little they have, keeps them controllable through the ever-present threat of destitution. But here's what they didn't count on. Category 5 individuals have often already survived economic hardship and discovered they don't actually need as much as society claims they do. You've learned to live leaner, think clearer, operate with less overhead, and that makes you economically invulnerable in ways that terrify people whose power is based on controlling resources. Third protocol: psychological operations designed to trigger regression. They'll send people from your past back into your life, create situations designed to activate old trauma responses, engineer scenarios that might push you back into previous behavioral patterns. Maybe an ex reaches out with carefully crafted messages designed to reopen wounds. Maybe family members suddenly need you in ways that historically pulled you back into dysfunctional dynamics. Maybe opportunities appear that would require you to compromise principles you've fought hard to establish. These aren't coincidences. These are tests. They're seeing if you've really changed, or if the right pressure in the right place might crack your new foundation and reveal the old you, the controllable you, still hiding underneath. But Category 5 means you've done the internal work. You've integrated your shadows. You've healed the wounds they're trying to reopen. So these operations just roll off you like water off titanium, leaving you stronger and more certain than before.